Hello, my name is Joanna Julian. At Core Connectivity, we believe in the power of the individual. Therefore, we recognize that the spirit of power and love in every human being must be defended one heart and mind at a time. So we advocate for this truth by educating people about the simple steps to create a more peaceful version of family by honoring their chosen faith as empowerment. This was my response to the power crisis mobile connectivity introduced to the parent-child relationship. In addition to the benefits of more efficient communication and personalized learning, mobile connectivity also brings the world in closer and exposes youth to adult issues at earlier ages. When it is possible to believe that everything you need to know you can simply Google and conceal, imparting wisdom is more challenging than ever. So the three areas of concern parents must be prepared to address with children in mobile connectivity include bullying, addiction, and exploitation. This talk explores ways to have a meaningful conversation with your child about sexual exploitation, and in particular, as it relates to internet porn and sexting. First, it is important to recognize that internet porn and sexting is about power and control over hearts and minds. It is not about sex. It is about human exploitation, which is glorified on and offline. It is so tempting to avoid talking about it because of the strong emotion and shame associated with gratuitous sex. So it is no surprise that porn is the first industry to set up shop in the cyber realm. Law enforcement officers will tell you that sexting is a very common thing among youth, and usually it involves a girl sending a sexually explicit image of herself to a love interest that when it sours, the relationship that is, her photo gets distributed and she is bullied. Boys are typically involved in the sharing of these images. Some of the consequences of sexting and internet porn are legal, social, emotional, and spiritual. On the legal front, children trading and distributing sexually explicit images of one another, these are minor children, is a felony child porn violation. And boys really are at risk of becoming registered sex offenders by distributing it. From a social standpoint, a girl's reputation can be horribly sullied and the humiliation can feel unsurvivable as the bullying will not stop while the photos get circulated. The emotional consequences are the dehumanizing and the devaluing of the people involved, including the ones that are circulating the images. It is an expression of powerlessness. And on a spiritual level, this kind of exploitation infects the future relationship with a spouse that makes it possible to make love and nurture a family. And so when kids experience sexual exploitation and its consequences, this is what I call a lie that becomes a real experience murdering the truth that our own children are magnificent sons and daughters, despite what is happening. In general, overcoming the shame of being exposed to and engaged in sexually exploitive images and activities is one of the challenges many youth will have to face. I encourage you to think back to when you were young and you knew too much for your own good. When you were exposed to something that inspired shame, did you run home and tell your parents about it? Probably not. Believe me, the pedophiles and the purveyors of internet porn are counting on it as kids keep such things secret for fear of being found out, when actually their liberty depends upon exposing it so justice can prevail. So the most important thing a parent can do is to create a home environment that it is safe to talk about events and images that inspire shame. One approach is to consider that sin is not a judgy thing, but rather as an archery term for anything outside of the bullseye. And then, when we apply this concept to the human condition, it covers a lot of territory ranging from a jealous, fleeting thought to capital murder. Anyone with the right circumstances and the wrong frame of mind is capable of just about anything. There but for the grace of God go I is the adage which curbs the temptation to criticize and ridicule those who have been caught in such traps. I have come to appreciate that overcoming shame requires the same mustard seed of faith that makes a free society possible. Recognizing that God is sovereign over the life of an individual, including your own child, and He grants every individual intelligent life and free will. So, therefore, when we use our free will wisely, it is possible to choose to forgive the offenses, the things that are outside of the bullseye, and change our course by aiming again towards the bullseye. In this way, I view God's love as archery lessons on how to love our children as God loves humanity, so they can learn how to be free from whatever risky traps they may have been exposed to or fall into, and choose to change their course despite the real consequences of what has happened, and then stand corrected. In order to nurture a mindset about sex and sexuality that inspires open communication, here are some things parents may want to consider. How do you model your sexuality? Are you comfortable answering questions about sex and sexuality? What expectations have you communicated to your child about interacting with the opposite sex? And then finally, here is a homework assignment you might want to consider. So if you choose, describe the spouse you hope your child will choose. What are that person's characteristics? How will that person treat your child? Equally important, how will your child treat their spouse? And why does it matter? How will they prosper with this relationship you can envision? Once you have considered these things, then start having conversations with your child about the value of having a spouse and what it means for their choices today. You can find more support and information at coreconnectivity.org